Alright, what's up guys? Very excited to bring you this deck. This is my Gravekeeper deck. Uh, really fun deck to play right now. Just got a card back to 2. Another win condition. But we've got the Royal Tribute back to 2. Very important card. If you control Necrovalley, both players discard all monster cards in their hands to the graveyard. Amazing card. Way more consistent at 2. Unfortunately, this card was not searchable with our main, all card searcher, Spiritualist, because it is not a Necrovalley spell or trap card. It is not a Gravekeeper monster, so unfortunately it was not searchable through the rest of the deck, and that was incredibly frustrating. But now at 2, it is way more consistent, there's a way higher chance that you'll see this in your opening hand. And I always love this card. It's amazing because you throw your opponent's entire, all their monsters in the graveyard. And then you shut off their monster. You shut off all of their, movement effects immediately. Because of Necrovalley, because they can't banish, they can't bring back from the graveyard. So you put all their cards in the graveyard, and then they have trouble getting them back. They have trouble, you would think, oh, well, you put all the Orcus cards in the graveyard. That's bad for them. Not really, because they can't banish themselves because of Necrovalley. It's really cool. Same thing with, Thunder Dragons and stuff like that. They can't banish them. So really good against random decks. Some people say, oh, what about the dangers? You might discard dangers. It's yeah, are they going to really replace every single danger that you discard? Honestly, Tsushinoko will summon itself. Some of the other, Jackalope will summon, the other one will search, but is it really going to replace everything? The answer is probably not. But very good card. Can't wait to play it in this meta. It's going to be very interesting. For sure. But let's start off the deck profile with 3 copies of Gravekeeper Spiritualist. This card basically, if you have Necrovalley, you can use this card. You can fusion summon using using this card right here. And 1 card in either your hand or on the field. And it is a hard once per turn. So basically, this card is like a 1 card. It's like a 1 card polymerization plus a material to summon the Spiritualist, Supernaturalist. It's nice because you don't lose as much as activating a polymerization to fuse, so it's really cool. So she's basically a material and a polymerization. Awesome effect. She has a really nice stat line. She's 1500 attack defense, and as you know, Necrovalley boosts everything by 500, which is really cool. So she's 2000 almost all the time. Next, we've got 3 copies of mandatory Gravekeeper's Commandant. Gravekeeper's Commandant, a lot better than playing Terraforming. Number 1, this card's 1600 attack, which doesn't seem like much, but again, you gain 500 attack when you have Necrovalley. But this card's basic effect is you discard it to search out Necrovalley from your deck to your hand. Again, really good card. We've got 3 copies of Gravekeeper's Recruiter. This card is very expensive for a long time. I haven't checked the price, but very expensive for a while. When this card is sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Gravekeeper monster with 1500 or less defense, which I'm pretty sure is everything in this deck. I don't think we play any of the really big ones. But it basically searches any Gravekeeper monster with 1500 or less defense. It doesn't miss timing because it's not a you can effect. So even though it's a when, it still doesn't miss timing. But yeah, good card. For level 3, it's like 1700 attack under Necrovalley, which is pretty decent. Then we've got a Gravekeeper's Headman. This card, when it is summoned, so special or normal summon, you can target one level 4, has to be a level 4, so you can't summon Recruiter, but you can summon the most important card, which is Spiritualist. You can summon a Spiritualist from your graveyard, and of course this card is unaffected by Necrovalley, so it can target a monster in your graveyard that's level 4, bring it back. Like I said, unaffected by Necrovalley because it's built into the effect, and it is a hard once per turn. If you want to make a really quick, let me see our extra deck here, a really quick Wee Witch Apprentice, for example. There you go. You can discard Commandant, normal summon, search Necrovalley, normal summon Gravekeeper's Headman, add special summon the Commandant, and you can make a Wee Witch immediately. Or you have, fusion material. You can just leave them on the field with one of our other win conditions. Then we've got one Gravekeeper's Descendant. This card basically, I play it at 1 because it's searchable with a Super Naturalist. Basically, you tribute a Gravekeeper monster, and then you can target one card your opponent controls and pop it. And it doesn't matter if it's spell, trap, monster, it doesn't matter. Which is really cool. Nice removal, but it's searchable, so I don't see the point of playing it at more than 1. And then we've got one Gravekeeper's Heretic. A lot of people play this at 3. I'm like iffy on this card. This is a little bit of a more aggressive, fast build. This is not a slow build. But this card is unaffected by all other cards, so it's good against Sky Strikers because they can't really do anything about this. So it's really cool for that. But the problem with being unaffected by all other cards is it's unaffected by Necrovalley, which means that it doesn't even get the attack boost. Also, he looks a little bit too much like this guy. Kind of a lazy artwork there. It's basically the same dude, but he has like an extra ring around his star, and that gives him like hundreds of attack more, which is kind of weird. Then we play the 3 hand traps. I'm not playing all of like the counter traps and the mirror forces and all that stuff. This is, we don't have to do that anymore because we're not playing card demise and all that stuff and like clogging our lanes. We're not doing that. So 3 Ash Blossoms. We have to. The problem with this deck is you have to be able to interact with your opponent during their turn. And hand traps are really the best way to do it. You have to have some way of going second with this deck, and if you don't play these, you're really creating a bigger problem for yourself. We play 2 Ghost Ogres, so 5 hand traps total. Cause some intrusions during your opponent's turn. Next, we've got the spell cards. Very important. We play 3 copies of Necrovalley. Necrovalley, one of the best field spells ever printed. All Gravekeeper monsters gain 500 attack and defense. Cards cannot be banished. Key. Very good against the meta. Good against Thunder Dragons. Good against 100. Really good against Orcust. And then also cards cannot be. Basically, they can't be moved from the graveyard to a different place. They can't be added back to the hand from the graveyard. They can't be summoned from the graveyard. So it's pretty good against. Really good. That effect is really good against Salamangrates. So it really hits a lot of the decks in the meta right now. It hits Thunder Dragons because cards can't be banished. Also, it hits. I mix up I think it's Pisty because you can't bring a card back from the graveyard. Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. So it hits a lot of random stuff really, really well. And again, this is just a field spell. Like it's a floodgate field spell. This isn't even talking about our main win conditions. This is just a field spell. Also, you can't change attributes or types in the graveyard, so that would apply to like Zombie World. Zombie World can't change the attribute in the type in the graveyard to zombie, so all your monsters stay spellcasters, and then you don't really get locked out of. You don't get locked into like a rivalry Zombie World lock. Then we've got 2 copies of Royal Tribute. I only have 1 ultra rare because I didn't see this card coming off the ban list. Love this card. It's one of my favorites. Basically, if you control Necrovalley, both players discard all monsters in their hand. Remember, this is you know that you're going to activate this card, but your opponent doesn't. So you can just, normal summon or fusion summon, whatever you need to, summon all the monsters you need to, activate Necrovalley, and then hit the field with this card, which is really cool. And your opponent, in most cases, it's at least like a -2, -3. I almost feel like I'm playing Goat format or something. It's beautiful. It's like I'm activating Delinquent Duo again. Usually, because you usually start the duel, you activate Necrovalley, not ashable. You activate this again, not ashable. No one's like this isn't ashable. You can't use Ghost Ogre. You can't use Gamma. You can't. I mean, literally, you can't hand trap this. You cannot stop it. You're just discarding. No one's drawing afterwards. You can't really stop this, and you basically eliminate a lot of your hand trap, like your opponent's hand traps, and they can't really respond to this in any way. If you hard draw like I said, if you hard draw a Necrovalley, or even if you search a Necrovalley, because most people won't ash the Necrovalley search because they're thinking to themselves you probably have something even bigger. If you activate Necrovalley and then activate this, they really have no way They have no way of stopping that, and sometimes they lose all of their hand traps, which is kind of crazy. Next, we play 3 copies of Hidden Temples of the Necrovalley. Again, this is a really aggressive build. I just want to lock my opponent out of playing the game. I want them to scoop, and I want to go to game 2. I don't. That's the whole win condition of my build. I'm not playing all the Storming Mirror, Forces, Solemn Strikes, goes in, none of that. The whole win condition is all searchable Gravekeeper stuff. Technically, this isn't searchable, but basically, you want to activate Necrovalley. Hopefully, you draw a Royal Tribute, which is more likely now that it's a 2. And then we've got, of course, the Hidden Temples. This card, if you control a Gravekeeper monster and Necrovalley, so you got to control both, your opponent cannot special summon. This card is searchable with Spiritualist, but also now it's a 3. I'm gonna, since I play it at 3, I can hard draw it most of the time. Again, extremely good card. Very scary to face. Some decks auto, if they don't have spell and trap card removal, it's like an auto lose because they can't special summon. A lot of decks like start with like for example, like Danger Thunder Dragon. Like, what are they gonna do about this deck? Like, a lot of their cards are special summons, and most of the time you'll end on a Spiritualist. So what in the world are they gonna do? Like, they can't normal summon a monster to beat over this, so they end up just scooping. There's nothing that they can do. They go to game 2 and they, decide in whatever they need to. But definitely very, very good card, very strong. Then we play 3 copies of Necrovalley Throne. Again, another card searchable with Esper. Or, I'm sorry, Supernaturalist. This card has 2 effects, both once per turn. They're not both once per turn, but you can only activate one of them, and then the card itself is a hard once per turn. So you can either add 1 Gravekeeper monster from your deck to your hand, which is usually the option that you want to choose, or you can immediately after this card resolves normal summon 1 Gravekeeper monster. So it's basically an extra normal summon. So it's like a double. It has a double summon effect basically, and it has a search, like a entire archetype, a monster lineup search. 2 pretty good effects. I mean, well, the first one is definitely an amazing effect. The second one is like, okay, it's situational. Most of the time you want to search a card because it's good. It's like a terraforming for your entire like monster lineup. It's really good. It's like a Salamangreat Circle, as I would say. It's like Salamangreat Circle. It has like the double effects built in. It's really good. And we play 1 Gravekeeper Stell for Steetle. Unfortunately, this card, Supernaturalist, doesn't search this because it searches a Necrovalley Spirit Trap card and a Gravekeeper monster. So it's a little bit frustrating because this is a Gravekeeper Spirit Trap card. I don't know what they should have fixed that. This card is not that broken to not be able to search. But we play it at 1 because it's good to see, but the problem is you don't ever want to see 2 of it, ever. There's never a situation. Because you target 2 Gravekeeper monsters in your graveyard and add those targets back to the hand. And, of course, that card is not negated by Necrovalley. It says it on the card. But basically, you never want to see this at 2 in your hand. You definitely don't want to see it at 3. And it's not like a very turn 1 card. But it's good because sometimes it can be like a 7th copy of Necrovalley because you'll use, for example, you'll use Commandant, activate Commandant, discard. Your opponent might like Ash it or something, and then you can normal summon, or you can like get another Gravekeeper monster in the graveyard, and then you can add this back to hand. Add both of them back to hand. This card isn't once per turn. Activate it again, and then use the Gravekeeper monster again. You have to target 2. That's kind of an issue too. You can't target 1 and then bring it back because that would be really good. But you have to target 2. So it's a pretty darn good card. Off to some more cards. Pot of Extravagance. Love this card in this deck. Love it. I think it's so much better than playing the Card of Demise, because the Card of Demise used to be pretty frustrating when you're trying to summon Supernaturalist. It's like, because you activate Card of Demise, you draw cards, and you're like, oh man, I drew one of the Spiritualists, and now you know, I can't even use its effect of special summon because I used Card of Demise and I drew into these cards and I have all these monsters. Now I have to discard these monsters. So in certain ways, it was really like pretty good because it got monsters in the graveyard. But at the same time, it left you on these like awkward boards where you didn't, you know, meet your win conditions, and you had to play all of this like back row. You lost to evenly matched, and it was really annoying. But definitely, I love playing Pot of Extravagance because it allows me to play what I think would be better cards, and allows me to get to my win conditions better. And then we play 3 copies of Super Polymerization, fresh, brand new ban list, very exciting. Makes going second way easier with this deck because again we have the 5 hand traps, and then we have the 3 super polymerizations, so we can both interrupt boards from being built and then kind of like finish off the boards that are built. And usually we can, you know, summon a pretty decent monster. I'll show you my extra deck after, but we can summon a pretty decent monster. Then we've got 3 copies of Imperial Tomb, the Necrovalley. Basically, when a spell trap card or monster effect is activated and you control both a Gravekeeper monster and a Necrovalley on the field, you can negate the activation. It's like Solemn. I really shouldn't call it Solemn Judgment because Judgment doesn't stop monster effects, but it's basically like a Solemn Judgment. For the archetype, again, it is searchable with Supernaturalist, but yeah, I played at 3 because I want to see it in my opening hand, and then, you know, I'll get more over time. And it is a hard once per turn, but remember, you can negate something during your opponent's turn, and then it comes back to your turn, you can negate something else. It is a little steep that you have to keep both on the field, but this deck is built pretty effectively to keep both of those things on the field. So that's everything. That is the entire main deck. We've got these, forgot to show it, beautiful sleeves here, imported from Japan. Beautiful Gravekeeper design. And let's move on to the extra deck. We play 3 copies of Gravekeeper Supernaturalist, technically speaking a super polymerization target, but its basic effect is it gains attack equal to the original levels of the materials used for its fusion summon. You know, it can easily get to like 3,500 and stuff like that. 32, 35, somewhere around there. You can use itself as the fusion material. It has a lot of levels. Pretty decent there. But it has more important effects. While you control Necrovalley, while Necrovalley is on the field, this card and any card on in your field zone cannot be destroyed by card effects. So they can't destroy your Necrovalley while you have this on the field. So sometimes you'll like end on this, for example, and you'll end on, give me a second, you'll end on that, a Necrovalley, that glare is vicious, and a Hidden Temples, and I mean that's basically an auto win because they can't Twin Twister this, so they can't get rid of your Necrovalley. They can't Twin Twister that. Technically, they can Twin Twister this, but they can't get rid of this monster because it protects itself if Necrovalley's on the field. So and usually they won't be able to beat over it. So it's a pretty like aggressive lock, and it's pretty easy to set up because everything's searchable. And then, as I've been talking about the search effect the entire time, during the main phase, right? You have to activate this during the main phase. Can be main phase 1 or main phase 2. You can activate this effect during the end phase. Oh, yeah. You can activate this effect. You have to activate an effect during the main phase, but to search during the end phase. And that sounds confusing because it is, and I don't really know why it's like that. But basically, you activate the effect during the main phase to search during the end phase. During the end phase, you can add 1 Gravekeeper monster or 1 Necrovalley card from your deck to your hand. This is, again, during your end phase, and even if this card leaves the field, you can still add the card. So that is actually pretty cool. So it's not like, I mean, they can still ash it, technically speaking, but basically, yeah, you activate it during the main phase. End phase, you can search for anything you want. It's a little annoying that you get the card during the end phase. It'd be better if you got it, obviously, during the main phase. You can make immediate use with it. You can search for the counter trap, or you can search for, something to add Necrovalley. You can add search for example, the Throne to search another card, the Hidden Valleys. It'd be nice if you could add it during the, or any of the Gravekeeper monsters maybe. But you do get the card during the end phase. Still, very good card. When it's like the boss monster of the deck, has huge attack. I like it a lot. Next card, we play. Oh yeah, and it's a super polymerization target too. You don't have to. It's not super polymerization is never really dead in the deck because you can fuse away your own cards, put cards in the graveyard. It's really cool. Next, we play 3 Diplex Chimera. I am playing this instead of the Chimera. Yeah, the Salamangreat Chimera, the Violent Chimera, because it's 2 Cyberus monsters, so it's way more versatile. I think that I don't want to say that Salamangreat's has fallen off yet. We don't know, but I think that since Marinesses are coming out, and there are other Cyberus-based decks that are pretty decent, I think it's better to just go with the double Cybers, the triple Diplex or Chimera. It's more versatile. I like it a lot better. And its effect is basically you tribute it, and you can tribute a Cyberus monster, which is usually going to be itself because you don't have to play any others in the deck, and then your opponent can activate cards during the battle phase. Then we've got 3 copies of Starving Venom. This is against all the dark decks. Stuff like, like Thunder Dragon, stuff like these other frustrating, annoying decks. Let me think about it. Orcus, stuff like that. This is against those decks. It gets rid of their monsters, non-targeting, fuses them away with Super Poly, and then this card gains attack equals to one of their monsters, and when it's destroyed, you can blow up their board, basically. Then we've got 2 copies of Mud Dragon of the Swamp. 2 monsters with different attributes, Super Poly target. Different, 2 monsters with the same attribute, different types, sorry. Then we play 1 Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. And again, I always play 1 Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon because their Pendulum decks aren't as common. And you're saying to yourself, why would you play 1? That doesn't even make sense. Remember, you can activate this in standby phase. So you can activate during the standby phase, fuse away their cards, and then during main phase 1, activate the Pot of Extravagance. So you actually dodge around Pot of Extravagance, because Pot of Extravagance has to activate at the start of main phase 1. So if you activate this during standby phase, because it's a quick play card, you can use the Odd Eyes Vortex. Because Odd Eyes Vortex is really only useful to you going second when you're breaking a pendulum board. It's not as useful going first. So really, because it's not that common, I play 1 Odd Eyes Vortex. It's really just to get just for going second against pendulums. That's why I have it in there. Then we've got 3 copies of the Wee Witch Apprentice. This makes all darks on the field gain 500 attack, and lights lose 500 or 400 attack defense, which is sometimes relevant, right, when you're playing against Thunder Dragon, stuff like that. And then this card is destroyed by battle or card effect. You can add a dark monster back to your hand. Again, sometimes relevant. You can add, for example, Commandant to search for a Necrovalley, which is really good, very useful. You got to make sure that Necrovalley is not on the field when you're using that effect, because obviously it's going to be negated. And yeah, this just boosts all your monsters by another 500. So under Necrovalley, you get 500 for Necrovalley, then you get another 500 for this, and it makes some monsters like regular monsters, like this is 2600 under those 2. Spiritualist gets gigantic under that. So very useful cards. That is the extra deck. Then we play the side deck. We play 3 copies of Dino or Pinkatrops. Everybody knows. Tribute it, pop a card, very useful. 3 Lancias against the Banishing decks. You know who they are. 3 Twin Twisters, because this deck doesn't have a lot of spell and trap card removal, so sometimes you need it. 3 copies of Evenly Matched for breaking boards, back row decks, stuff like that. And then 3 copies of Red Reboot to even it out. Love Red Reboot, very good against back row decks. Even, good against counter traps, regular traps. Kill Salamangreats. Lets you like OTK, because this deck actually has some decent OTK potential now that it's gotten some boosts. But that's everything. I hope you enjoy the deck. I hope you try it out. It's really a lot of fun. Very, very, it's very great for just watching the frustration on your opponent's face when you basically lock them out of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! But Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.